Well, hello, everybody. How are you doing? I am seeing so many comments already here. We got Vicky and Angela and Garrett and Janice and a whole bunch of you joining us. So thank you so much. And typically there's like a 15-second delay or something. So you guys will start popping in here pretty soon. I see we've got some of you guys on. So let us know where you guys are listening from. I know, what was it? Gosh, Wednesday night. We had people from as far away as Papua New Guinea, which was really, really cool. So, yeah, we got, West Virginia already. And Dave, remind us, you're on the East Coast, right?
Yes, I live in Delaware now.
Delaware. All right. That's known as, it's New Jersey is known as the Garden State, right?
New Jersey is the Garden State. I don't know what Delaware is called. I've only lived for 6 months.
Okay.
I don't know what they call it. I really don't. That's bad.
We've got Alberta, we've got New York City, we've got Oklahoma, Arizona, Maine. So we've got everybody from all over, and we've got Barbara with us as well. Barbara, welcome.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit. One of the things that day one was all about is why flowers. And I think, kicking it back to you, Dave, first, and then Barbara, what is kind of like, what do flowers mean to you?
Well, flowers are something that pretty much anybody can grow, and almost anybody likes them. There's very few people who don't like flowers. Like people don't like certain foods, whatever, but almost everyone likes flowers. So you have an almost unlimited potential of customers to sell your flowers to if you're growing them as a business, or just if you're growing them for yourself. Pretty much anybody can grow their own flowers. As long as you have a piece of dirt, a plot of land, and some sunshine and some water, you can grow flowers.
Mm-hmm. And Dave, I would actually say that, even if you only have inside, you could grow some bulbs.
Oh, yes, you can do amaryllis, paper whites, indoor houseplants, obviously, for indoors, yes. Or it can be a plot as small as a 4 by 8 foot plot of land outside your front door or back door. It doesn't have to be big.
Yeah, absolutely. Barbara.
Yes. I think that was really well said, and I agree. I think flowers are so beautiful and they're so healing, and as well, they're very often are the pinnacle of plants that are extraordinarily healing as well. So just all around, there's just so many benefits.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we saw when COVID hit and flower and plant sales increased 30, 40%. It just made people feel good to be able to have plants and flowers around them.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I know so many garden centers basically had banner years because everyone they were staying home, so they wanted to make it look good.
Right.
And I know that trend has continued a little bit. Well, let's get into some questions, because we actually here, I'm looking at, we've got over 60 questions, literally, that just people have sent us personally, and obviously there's dozens and dozens on the other Facebook page, as well as the different posts we've got. But there's a couple, like 2 questions I've got that are directly for Dave, and then we'll kind of go to some other ones. Adgerarium, what variety of that do you recommend?
Oh, the Adgeratum. Blue Horizon.
Blue Horizon
is the one. It grows to be 2.5, 3 feet tall, reblooms all summer. The biggest thing is you got to keep it fertilized, because if you expect it to grow and bloom from June till frost, you got to feed it some throughout the season.
Okay. And so feed maybe once a month, or?
Once a month is fine. It's just you can't plant it in late April or May and expect it to still be pretty in September if you're not going to give it some more fertilizer.
Gotcha.
And I don't care what kind of fertilizer you use, just use something in July and August so that it keeps growing.
All right. And then when should one prune the Limelight hydrangeas, the knee-high?
Anytime over the winter before they sprout in the spring. So you can do it now. Get a warm sunny day in January and do it. You just don't want to let them start to sprout out new leaf and new growth in the spring before you prune them. So anytime they're dormant over the winter.
All right. All right. Now, someone's also got a question here about daylilies. Daylilies, really, there's not really any.
That's why they're called daylilies. They last for 1 day. They're not a cut flower, except for something nice, a little 8-year-old kid to bring into mom. But it's not something you would ever grow to sell or to use in a wedding design or anything like that, because literally you pick it today, tomorrow that flower is dead. There might be another bud on the stem that opens, but you got a dead flower in the vase or in the bouquet. So it's never used as a cut flower. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. And then the other thing is Japanese beetles love to eat them.
Japanese beetles like to eat a lot of things. But yes, they eat the daylilies too. They'll eat your good flowers too. They'll eat your zinnias, they'll eat basils, they'll eat all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But the good thing about those is they're usually only around for 3 or 4 weeks and they're done for the season. They have a short life cycle.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So let's kick this to here. The one of the questions from Lynn is work and life balance. How do people handle that?
Barbara, or I think the biggest thing is you just have to draw the line. It's just you have a regular 9 to 5 job. At 5 o'clock, you go home. If you're running a farm, you work. It probably is going to be from 7 to 8 or 7 to 6 at night. But when the day is done, you got to be finished and stop and go eat dinner and go do whatever you have to do. You don't want to be tied down to your farm 24 hours a day. I know when I had my farm, I always made sure I tried to take Mondays off. It's just I didn't deliver to florists. I didn't ever have anything. There wasn't a market, wasn't anything I had to do on Mondays, so I could leave the farm and do something else, or I could stay at work if I felt like it, but I wasn't tied to the farm that day.
Mm-hmm.
I think another form of balance is just following what you want to do in that moment. In other words, there's so many tasks that need to be completed, but sometimes you just need to take a moment and spend time with family or walk away. And when you're running your own business, if you have that flexibility to really respond to what you need in that moment, that is an extraordinary way to get balance.
Mm.
Right.
So
That's what she's saying is if you're not stuck at a farmer's market on a Saturday all day, if it's a day of the week you need to go to the doctor or take your mother to the doctor or go visit a sick friend, you have that flexibility because you make your own schedule.
Exactly.
To a degree. You're still tied down to your certain marketing days. For the rest of the week, you can make it flexible.
You know, one of the things I think, Barbara, you said there, you have to kind of like, do what you want there is, Paul and Sandy Arnold were my mentors in upstate New York. And Dave, you may have run into them I'm sure you ran into them at a conference once in a while. But I was always, I'd stop by once in a while and every so often find Sandy just out weeding something that literally did not really need weeded. And she's like, that's been bugging me for a week. So I just needed to stop and do it.
Yeah. And when you get that little project done, you feel like you've accomplished something. With so much other stuff in the farm, you have so much, you never can finish everything. Never will you ever finish everything. We all know that. So if you can get one project, you're going to finish, whether it's building that tunnel, weeding that bed, planting that plant, painting new signs, whatever it is. If you finish one project completely, you feel like you've accomplished something that day, as opposed to just doing 1,000 different things, never finishing any one individual project.
Yeah. So I'm also hearing Dave is finish something.
Yeah.
All right. Let's look here else. Refrigeration. Let's talk about refrigeration needs for flowers. It gets over 100 degrees frequently here during the summer, and the coldest freeze months are always December through March.
Well, to me, the biggest thing is, as far as needing to have a cooler, is not necessarily what your weather is, but it's what your marketing schedule is. Flowers don't get ready on Saturdays when the market is held. They get ready 7 days a week. So if you're able to sell flowers more than 1 day a week, you can sometimes get away without having a cooler when you're smaller. Once you get to be a bigger farm, you need to have a cooler. But when you're first starting out, you can get around not having a cooler if you have a place to sell the flowers or use them throughout the week. And also some flowers have a longer shelf life on the plant in the field. Something like a delphinium or a snapdragon, you don't have to pick it today. It's still good tomorrow. But something like a sunflower, when it's starting to open, it's ready to be picked. You can't leave it in the field for 3 or 4 days, it goes bad. So certain plants or certain flower varieties just have a longer shelf life in the field. So it allows you to pick maybe 2 or 3 days a week, as opposed to every day a week while you're doing something like sunflowers. Or if you're growing lilies or tulips, you have to pick those every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing, as far as if you're doing large scale, large quantity of peonies, tulips, ranunculus, some of the earlier season crops that don't do well in the heat, you really do need to get those picked as they're ready and store them in a cooler until you're ready to sell them later in the week. It's very difficult to grow tulips without without a cooler.
Yes. And you always want to build twice the size of the walk-in cooler you think you need.
Because you're going to need it. Always plan an expansion and
10 by 12, 8 by 16, and a 7 by 14. We have 3 coolers.
Yeah, because you had to keep building more, right?
Yes. It's kind of like tunnels, tunnels and coolers keep multiplying like rabbits on everyone's farms.
Yep.
So,
If I can,
Barbara, talk to us. Go ahead, Barbara.
Amy put in the chat, you said zinnias can't go in the cooler.
Zinnias shouldn't go in the cooler. Some people do, but sometimes they turn them brown. It just damages them. Both zinnias and also if you use basil. Basil doesn't like to go in the cooler.
Yes, and then Renee asks, and this is probably a question for Dave. She's looking for Lisianthus or Eucalyptus plugs. She's in Ontario, Canada. Does Ball ship to Ontario? I'm assuming they do.
Well, Ball doesn't grow the plants themselves. We broker for growers.
Yeah.
Some of the growers do ship to Canada. There are some growers in Canada. The trick is eucalyptus seed is pretty much non-existent. Very few last year, hardly any this year because of the wildfires in Australia in the past few years. Supposedly the seed supply will be better next year. So looking ahead toward 2023, you'll be able to get eucalyptus plugs. This year, unheard of. If you haven't already got it ordered, you're not going to get it. Lisianthus plugs, you're better off trying to find a grower near you. In Canada, there's Jolly Farmer, who's up in the Ontario area somewhere. They do Lisianthus plugs. Not a lot of different varieties, but they do have Lisianthus plugs. But Lisianthus takes 12 weeks to grow, so you don't want to wait until ready to plant them to order them. I always like to say that plugs are like wedding cakes. You don't go looking for the wedding cake the day before your wedding. You want to order it months in advance. The same thing with plugs. Order months in advance so you get what you want.
Very cool. Very cool. Barbara, you talked a little bit in your presentation about edible flowers. Talk to us a little bit more about, how are people integrating that?
Well, I think that, one of the first things people can do is if they're not growing flowers and they're growing vegetables, to realize that many of those flowers are edible. Mm-hmm. So just take all of the cruciferous variety as an example. All of those flowers are edible. The allium flowers are edible. That includes, certainly the chive flowers, the garlic flowers, all of those are edible. The cruciferous would be all of the brassica family. Those are edible. Radish flowers are edible. There's so many things that are already there that people have and they may just not realize. And of course, there's a lot of things that grow prolifically for many of us, like dandelions, which are edible. And then there's flowers that people are growing for sale that are also edible, whether they be calendula. There's just so many varieties. And I just like to mention that almost any flower you eat is going to have just a wealth of what we call phytonutrients, and mm-hmm. Phyto just means plants. So when we're eating flowers, it's like a really concentrated source of nutrients that we get from plants that, the research just continues to come out about the benefits of these. So I would encourage, make sure you identify the plant correctly before you eat the flower. But if you know it's edible, give it a go. And it's delightful. And it's also beneficial to our health.
I would jump in on that. Is we actually grew some of the giant marigolds this year for cut flowers. And we actually pulled the petals and sold the petals of that. Now, again, it's pretty strong flavor, but the color, yes. Can't beat the color, and you can't beat the size of the petal for sprinkling through a salad mix. It's just, it's incredible.
I agree. And Monica asked, by all allium flowers being edible, does that include the cutting varieties? Well, allium flowers, if the way I would like people to think about it is if the bulb and or the leaf is edible, then the flower is edible. But some of the varieties that we call alliums that are decorative flowers, you would want to be careful about unless you really looked at the genus and the species. From a health perspective, we always talk about the genus and the species to make sure, like, for example, chives are Allium chenophrasium, as an example, or Allium tuberosum. We want to make sure we have the genus and the species identified to make sure whether or not it's edible. So I would just be careful with your decorative varieties that you also call alliums to make sure you actually understand what the genus and the species is. before you eat it.
All right. Yeah, you want to make sure. Okay, so this is a great story. Now, Dave, didn't you submit your profile picture of you standing in front of, is it foxgloves?
That was Foxglove digitalis, yes, which is
Yes.
what heart medicine is made of, and you shouldn't eat that. That's
Very
a flower you don't want to
dangerous.
eat.
I will confess that someone told me, hey, did you know Lowe's is having 4 for $10 on their 1 gallon annuals, perennials? And I was like, oh, yay. So I went and bought my entire vehicle full, and I saw some foxglove, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I brought it home. My employee, as she pulled it out of the truck, said, you know, these are deadly poisonous. And she told my wife made me get rid of them.
Yeah. But they're not deadly poisonous as in, you eat a little teeny piece, it's going to kill you. You have to eat a lot of it. But
Yeah.
still, you don't want to eat it at all.
But
Right.
for the fact that we have a lot of kids on the farm, I have a 4-year-old, a 7-year-old that, they could do anything, and they do anything and everything. So it was better wait till I'm retired, but then I'll have grandkids. I still won't be able to grow them.
Yeah. I've never tasted them, but I would hope that they just don't taste good. Usually things that are bad for you don't taste good. So
Yes.
hopefully that's the case. I've never tried them, and I don't plan to.
Yes.
And I think that's why for cutting gardens for little ones, they love dandelions and every part is edible. They love red clover and it's edible. To make sure, for children's cutting gardens in particular, that or any cutting garden where a child is going to be, to make sure it's edible and safe, just in case.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about, we have a giveaway winner to share here in a little bit from the day's giveaway, which was provided by Farmer's Friend, which was a 50-foot tunnel. So we have that a little bit later. So you guys are going to want to hang around for that. We will also give away just an all access pass to folks that are on tonight. So if you're on tonight, make sure you hang with us at the end. We will do an all access pass for somebody. And yes, let's get some more questions from, I'm going to leave some of these questions that are a little more business side, because I know we have some later talks that we can do that. Let's do California poppies.
I read that question earlier. They're having weeds take over.
No, this is the one is how to grow them. Growing some test plot. Yes, they're growing some test plot and struggling with grasses and weeds growing over. And my experience, you throw the seeds out and they come up, but then there's just so much challenge because they're so small.
Right. You want to direct sow them, but a lot of times if you have something that you're direct sowing and you're planting into new ground that you've worked, if you want to let the weeds grow first, flame weed them to get rid of the weeds, then plant your good seeds without disturbing the soil. So you basically let all the seeds in the top ½ inch grow and kill them by flame weeding, and then you put on your good seed and you have less weed pressure. So that's something you do if you're doing something like the poppies that you're direct seeding. Not enough people do flame weeding. It works great, easy to do. Timing is everything.
Okay.
But that's what I would recommend. But the poppies are definitely better direct sown. I see one question here. The second one on the list you sent earlier. How can flower farming be successful in the Midwest? It can be successful anywhere. If you're doing this as a business, you can be successful anywhere as long as you have the customer base. And just to remind everybody, the customer base may not be in your town. It might be ½ hour away. It might be 2 hours away. But you've got to get your crop, your product to the customer to buy it, whether it's half an hour away or 2 hours. But you can be successful anywhere.
Yeah.
It's all in where you can sell it.
I remind everyone, Steve and Gretel, very, very successful. At least the number of greenhouses they have seems to indicate that. Right. They are in Columbus, Ohio, which again is very Midwest.
Yeah. But Columbus, Ohio is a big city, right? Next to them. But if you can be in the middle of the Midwest and be an hour away from the grocery store.
I know clients that are. Absolutely.
Yeah. But then you have to
you
got to take your product to where the customer is. And that's what you have to do when you live in the middle of nowhere.
And shipping. Now, you talked about that in your talk, Dave, is about the prevalence of shipping is exploding and just how that now gives you that, much, much larger audience.
Yeah.
Barbara, there's a question that came up through here. They're asking top 5 flowers. So if you give us your top 5 that you must have for, let's say, the first year.
Oh gosh, top 5 medicinally, top 5 to eat, top 5 beauty, top 5 healing. Oh my goodness. What a great question.
Well, let's start on the top 5 feeling, because I think that's something really good, because that's really relevant for every one of us. If we have a little patch outside our window and we just want, at the end of the day, be able to walk out there and just, sit and enjoy it.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Well, all flowers are healing. Let me start with that. Not all are edible, but all are healing. Probably if I were going to pick one flower, I would start with the rose. I don't know if you can hear the animals running around behind me. Oh my. Happy animals here.
Yeah.
So roses, extraordinarily healing for many reasons. They're also edible. The rose hips, we call them fruits. They're actually a hypanthium, but just to keep it simple, we call it the fruit of the rose. That's also edible, very high source of vitamin C. Let's see, as far as something we don't go after necessarily eating, but is also extraordinary healing, are irises. Let's see, something that I would love to see everybody let grow are dandelions, because all parts are edible. Every part is beneficial. Gosh.
It's interesting. We had, because we're a farm stand 6 days a week, we had someone come out to the farm, and they asked if they could harvest all the dandelions around our area. They just were out there cutting them, taking the whole plant. We let them, but on one aspect, I did realize I was losing some of my dandelions because they're important bee food in the spring, especially.
Very important food. And I know I just said that all parts are edible, but I'd really like to reinforce that the dandelion truly is a survival food. And when you have wild foods, which dandelion would be classified as such, the nutrient content tends to be much more concentrated and much higher. And so they really are of great value. If there are those there who have never eaten a dandelion flower, I would recommend it. When they're younger, they tend to be more honey-like tasting. So just keep that in mind. As they get older, they tend to have a kind of a bitter taste, which, we need bitters. They're very good for the body, but some people may not like that taste.
Yeah.
Let's see. Gosh, there's so many. And as soon as we're finished, I'm going to be like, oh, I should have said this one. Oh, they're all my favorites.
Well said. I ate my first rose hip today after watching your webinar.
Oh, thank you.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Nasturtiums are yummy, but nasturtiums are spicy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well said.
And then we got. Go ahead.
You mentioned alliums before. Alliums are beautiful and just, again, full of phytonutrients and very, very tasty. Chicory flowers, very tasty. Of course, the chicory root and the chicory leaves all can be used. There's just so many different options.
Can you eat comfrey flowers? Or are they not an edible?
Well, generally speaking, I err on the safe side, and I would say no. Just like I would say take care with the leaves and the root, but there are those that work with those all the time. There are people out there that work with those all the time and are a little bit more comfortable using those for different things. Like, for example, I will chew on a comfrey leaf every once in a while to strengthen the teeth, but then I'll spit it out. That's just an example.
Yeah.
And certainly I think a lot of us use comfrey as fertilizer and garden amendments and things like that. So I personally am more respectful of comfrey in that regard and don't eat and swallow the aerial parts or the roots.
Yeah. All right, that's awesome. Now, Dave, let's kick it to you. 5 flowers a beginning cut flower garden must have.
If you're starting out with a cut flower garden, definitely sunflowers. Number one, you got to grow them, plant them every week. Zinnias, celosia, the blue horizon ageratum for your filler for your bouquets, and as much as people might hate it, Comfrey. If you grow those 5 flowers, you can make bouquets all summer. Now, those aren't necessarily my 5 favorite, but those are the 5 that you should grow if you're trying to make bouquets and sell flowers all summer.
Okay, now back, Dave. Now, again, this is another question that popped in. 5 hardest to grow flowers.
Hardest to grow. Well, Lisianthus, if you're trying to grow it yourself from seed, it's very difficult to start the seeds. It takes 12 weeks to get a seedling big enough to transplant. It takes 6 weeks to even get big enough to handle the seedling. But if you buy plugs, they're not hard to grow. But hard to grow, I don't think there's anything that's really hard to grow as long as it has the right plant in the right place.
Yes.
You can't try and grow peonies in Florida, and you can't grow, bird of paradise in Alaska. It's just not going to work. So as long as you have the right plant in the right location, it should be able to grow it, as long as you can keep it watered.
Roses aren't necessarily easy, though.
Roses, because they're disease prone, insect prone, and you're not going to be growing the rose like you see at the grocery store for Valentine's Day or from the florist. You're going to be growing the David Austin type, the garden rose, which there are varieties like that work great. Star Roses has some. They're not something like where you're going to be picking multiple stems off it every week. You might only get a couple stems a week off of it. So it takes a lot of plants to get a bucket of flowers. But roses do work. But again, that's something you definitely want to have a cooler for, because the roses, if it's ready on Monday, it's not going to be good on Friday.
Now, this is a side question, but how do they grow the roses you get in the grocery store?
Under cover in either a greenhouse or just a covered structure, usually in South America where it's warm all year. And they grow them, old plants that might last them for many years, and they're just constantly cutting that 3-foot stem, and they prune them right, fertilize like crazy, water like crazy, spray like crazy for insects and disease, and grow them that way. But they literally grow them by the millions in South America.
Yeah, interesting.
But they've got the perfect temperature.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Back to you, Barbara. What would be your top 5 flowers for kids?
Kids. Well, as I mentioned, dandelions. I would do red clover.
Yep.
Gosh, those are really good questions. I think Dahlia would be a little spicy. Nasturtium would be a little too spicy. That's a good question.
What about cosmos?
Are you
thinking of them to eat, or just to grow, or to eat, Michael?
Either. I know you can eat cosmos. I don't think it's particularly spicy.
Yeah, I think if you're, maybe boorish, because it really gets their attention, which is also edible. With little kids, I tend to want to make sure that they're all edible just in case, just in case. But cosmos are certainly so beautiful, no question about that. What else? I mentioned before, I like the cruciferous varieties. They have just a little bit of spiciness, but that's not bad for a young one to start to get used to that taste. Sunflowers are quite delightful for little ones. I think they really enjoy, looking at them. Something that's really fun is to grow sunchokes or Jerusalem artichokes. They're in the sunflower family, and they're very, very easy to grow. And the bulbs, the underground part, that is edible. That's like a cross between a potato and a water chestnut.
Yeah.
People, so you get kind of 2 for 1 there. You can grow the Jerusalem artichokes, which again are very, very easy to grow. And then people can take the sunflower. It tends to be a smaller flower. It's not grown for seeds.
Yeah.
And then you have the bulbs underground are edible as well.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I would say about Jerusalem artichoke, super easy, but also highly invasive. So make sure you contain them to a very specific spot, someplace you don't mind if they spread a little bit. Because we literally had them spread over, the corner of our yard anytime we've tried to grow them. I also wanted to bring this one up: milkweed and dill to draw monarchs and swallowtail caterpillars. The milkweed milkweed is poisonous, but our kids this year flipped out over we'd bring when they were outside harvesting all season long, we'd find the caterpillars or the chrysalises and bring them in, and they would hatch them, and they just were so excited. So C.E. Wells, thanks for that one. Yeah, that was a good idea right there.
It's a great idea. And violets as well. Violets are just so beautiful, and little ones love those, and those are edible. Both the flowers and the leaves are edible. Very beneficial.
Yeah.
So that's a thought as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, there's 320 people joining us live, which is amazing. Yeah, that is absolutely stunning. Let's talk about setting up flower beds. Obviously this changes for everyone. I think, it really depends on the farm. If you're a bigger farm, they're going to be bigger blocks. And Steve and Gretel on Sunday talk about that very thing. So if you're large scale, but let's talk about, small scale. Barbara, what do you got for us?
Gosh, can we start with Dave on that?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I know what I want to say. If you're starting a farm and you have room where you're going to have a decent number of beds and area to grow, I'm not talking a little quarter-acre backyard farm, but where you've got an acre of property that you're going to convert to flower farm. I always recommend keeping things consistent. So every bed's 50 feet, 100 feet, 60, whatever, so that your drip tape always matches, your row cover is the same length. So you don't have to go and try and where's that piece of row cover that's 3 feet longer than the rest because I need to fit this bed instead of that other one. So just pick a size. It doesn't matter what it is. Just keep consistent length to your beds. So your drip tape and your row cover, everything always matches and fits it. You have to decide whether you want to have wide walkways between your beds, big enough to put a lawnmower and mow the grass, whether it's a riding mower or a push mower, or if you want to be a little narrow path, it's only 18 inches that you put a piece of landscape fabric on to keep out the weeds. That's both ways work. The flowers look the same when you're finished. The cut flowers in the bucket look the same. You just got to decide what you want to do on your farm, how you want to manage your layout of your fields. It's also really important to keep in mind a way to get your flowers out of the field. So you don't want to have 200-foot long rows that you've got to walk 150 feet back to the bucket of flowers to get to the tractor or the wagon. You want to make it either you can drive the tractor through the center of the field with the wagon, wherever you're going to transport your flowers, so that you're not spending half your day walking back and forth, that you can drive your gator or whatever you're using to haul your flowers close to the flower beds.
And on pathways, it really depends on what scale you're at. So if you're doing, let's say, the BCS style, a 6 to 7 foot wide pathway is plenty. If you're doing tractor, I like 20-foot minimum, maybe 15 if you're in a tight spot. But if you're using manure spreader, you definitely want that 20 feet.
Right. And if you're also using just a garden tractor or a gator that's 4 feet wide, you only need a 5-foot walkway or path between the beds. But then the space between, you might have that space and then have 5 or 6 beds before you have another road, so to speak, to take your tractor or your wagon down. And the space between those individual beds can be either that, like I said, 18 inches with the row cover, the fabric to keep out the weeds, or you can mulch it if you want to, or you can make it a 2-foot wide walkway that you push a lawnmower down and fill it with clover and just mow it every other week.
Yeah. We've gone to standardizing ours based on irrigation and row cover. So we want to basically have one size of row cover for the entire farm and one setup for irrigation, so that basically it's 6 beds wide. You just we have the mega nets. We know that's what that's going to cover. And then we have the pathways. And yeah, it burns a little bit more basically pathway space, but I think it's important to be able to get to the crop because you don't want, as you said right there, you do not want to spend your days walking.
Right.
Barbara, anything you want to add?
I do, except Erica asked a question. Do you mean 20-foot paths all around the outside and up the middle?
It really depends on how you lay out your farm. How about we do this? Barbara, do you tell us about the book and I will pull up our farm map and I'll show them exactly what I mean.
Okay. Well, thank you for asking. The book is going to come out from Hay House. The publisher is Hay House. And the book is The Sacred Alchemical Healing Properties of Flowers. The Sacred Alchemical Healing Properties of Flowers. Thank you for asking.
All right. And when does that come out again?
Spring?
Oh, the spring. So you don't have an exact date yet.
Correct.
All right. All right. Here we go. I am going to do this right here where I share my screen. So it's going to take me a hot second to make sure that I've got the right screen being shared. All right. So let me turn on the back layer. There, you can kind of see that right there. So when I say blocks right here, so you can see like this is a 100-foot long block. And then it's got a 10-foot path there, which is too tight for our tractor. So actually one of these blocks is going into perennials. I think actually this block might go into blackberries or raspberries, and this block here is actually going to go into a high tunnel. But you can see out here where we've got our, this is actually all strawberries this year. You can see the drive path right there, which is about 15 feet. Then right here, we have the path at the end of the bed. So all the beds run this way, and we've got that 20 foot so we can turn our tractors there. But then every so many beds, there's a drive path as well between. So it's kind of blocks. And these are all hoop houses right here. We got 4 hoop houses here. But this is all broken up too. This is last year's photo, so you can't see it. For some reason, like these blocks, I'm not wanting to show up. But yeah, that's kind of how it's set up. Is we've got, this obviously here is our lawn, so that's where we can turn the tractor around there. This is the drive path that we've cut up into the field, and then we've got paths going down between the beds that way. This is the same way here. These are actually technically chopped in half, and there's more blocks here. This is actually an older section, but that's kind of how we have that set up. So lots of paths. And I think, the aspect is more paths than not is going to be typically better.
While you're changing your screens, I'll just mention you brought up raspberries. So when we first moved to this land, I planted a bunch of raspberries and blackberries, and they do okay. But by far, my wild raspberries have outperformed my cultivated raspberries by like 100-fold. And, so with the property you have, Michael, if you've got some wild raspberries in the area, you can just get a few stems and roots and plant those out. Now, full disclosure, I don't know, if you were going to sell them at a farm stand or something like that. I really don't know how well those would do. But the number of berries far outperforms anything cultivated I've ever grown. And again, the nutrient density in the wild food is so much higher. Yeah. And those are all in the apple family, all in the rose family. And again, all of those blossoms are edible too.
That's awesome. All right, so I know we've got a giveaway. My team says they have a winner for our package today, which is awesome. They've sent me the information, but we've got 327 people on here live. Why don't we get some shares going? And we can get 25 shares for this stream. We will go away and just give away an all access pass. So if you guys want to go ahead and start sharing this stream on your or in a group or something like that, and then you want to comment in the thing that you shared that, we will pick somebody to win an all access pass. Dave, talk to us a little bit about, people keep talking about their favorite flowers and stuff, but I want to say, what flower to you is the one you plant once and you just keep harvesting it all season long?
That you harvest all season?
Yeah, the most bang for your square foot.
It's hard to say because you can grow like a ranunculus in the spring and you can make a lot of money per square foot in that 6 or 7 weeks that they're blooming. But then I was talking before about the Blue Horizon Ageratum. That's going to grow all summer and keep blooming all summer. You might make as much total money, but it took up that space in the bed 5 months of the summer instead of just 6 or 7 weeks in the spring.
Okay.
One plant that I always tell people to grow, although there's no seed this year, is the eucalyptus. You're going to make a ton of money off of eucalyptus, especially if you're growing in a tunnel and you're zone 6 or 5B and warmer in a tunnel. It will overwinter and come back. And you will be selling buckets and buckets of eucalyptus from mid-June till after frost. And florists buy local eucalyptus every week. They'll use it like ferns.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that, because can you take cuttings from eucalyptus and start them in your greenhouse?
It's very difficult. It's like trying to root an oak tree. It's just not usually done.
It takes a very long time.
Yeah, it's not usually successful. It can be done, but don't count on it.
So you need to have the highly skilled, rooting hormones and all that good stuff. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yep. You better off just waiting till next year when the seed's available again.
Yes. Yeah. Because we've got 4 tunnels, and I'd love to throw it in a corner of that, and just.
Well, don't put it in the corner. Put it down the middle because it gets really tall.
Okay.
It'll
Good
be
to
hitting
know.
the ceiling by the end of July.
Now, the other thing is that's going to take over, and so that's going to be there for the rest of my life, right?
Not quite the rest of your life. It eventually does peter out. I know I've had farmers before like fill that center bed, and after 6 or 7 years, maybe a third of them have died out just of old age and being pruned back every year. So you probably would eventually have to replace it after a while. So it's not forever like a peony.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, we've got a winner here for you guys shared this like crazy, which is awesome. L. Cummings is with us on YouTube. And thank you for that. We're going to give you the all access pass. So make sure you reach out to our team. It's going to be hello@growingfarmers.com. And congrats. So thank you guys for doing that. And yeah, I mean, those shares just popped in here like crazy. All right, so I've written that down here. Let's go back to our questions. Let's do 2 more questions. Then we're going to go ahead and announce our winner for the day's giveaway, courtesy of Farmer's Friend. Yeah, Farmer's Friend's a great company. I've known Jonathan, who's the owner there, well, almost since he started the company. And they now just, I don't know, Dave, if you've seen their brand new building they just built, but it's huge, it's beautiful. They now have expanded, they started doing the greens cut harvester, which we use every single week on our farm. We use it for microgreens. Now they do tarps and landscape fabric. They now actually will custom cut landscape fabric, the holes in it for you. It's a bit of an upcharge,
wow.
But it's super convenient.
Worth it.
Oh, it's so worth it. I mean, who's got time to stand there and burn it? And then you're smelling that, and then you got little pieces sitting all around, and then you just burn it. Yeah. So they do it. They do their caterpillar tunnels, I think, are their #1 thing. You do want to be careful if you're in a really, really super snowy environment. Just make sure you beef them up a little bit more. But they do produce a very high quality product. So, yeah. So Janice is saying, I am just trying to figure out where I belong. Is there anything you can share to help me decide that? And I guess maybe what I think Janice is trying to say, is there's the world of flowers is massive. There's so many different things you can do. I mean, ways to sell it. There's weddings, there's shipping, there's farmers markets, there's U-Pick, there is sunflower mazes. There's so many different things. How do I discover, where my place in the world is?
Well, I think anybody who starts in the cut flower business, their game plan or their business plan is going to change throughout the years. You might start out and think, oh, I want to grow flowers and do weddings. And after 3 or 4 years, like, I'm tired of dealing with these brides. I just want to grow the flowers and sell them to florists. Or you might be selling to florists and say, well, I want to make that money for the weddings. And then you start doing weddings. Or like Barbara does, you start growing edibles and focus on that. You can go so many different avenues. You become a destination farm that's just for events and festivals. You have a peony festival, a tulip festival, a pumpkin festival, different things to bring people to your farm as agritourism. Or you can be like, I never want a person on my farm, and you pick everything and take it to a farm stand, a wholesaler, or a farmer's market. So what you think you want to do today might be different in 5 years once you have done it for a few years. So I would say have an open mind and be ready to adapt and change as needed, or as you feel you want to do something different.
I think that is so well said. And I think as well, what it's easy to say, but really what is your interest? Because where your passion is, your energy will follow and remain. And so if you like to connect with people, maybe you have a U-Pick, or you are, out, selling your product. If you just want to be with those flowers and you want somebody else to do that aspect. So those are things to kind of think through, is what do you really love? What connects with you? And then put your focus there, and somebody else will fill in those other pieces. You can find somebody to fill in those other pieces.
Yeah.
Right. Some people are meant to be farmers market sellers, and some people should stay on the farm. And that's
Exactly.
not good or bad either way. But some people just are much better off on the farm in the quiet, plant, pick and weed, and let someone else go and sell it. And some people that can great selling at the farmers market, they would kill everything when they tried to weed or water or plant. So you've got to find your corner to go into and do a good job in that corner, and maybe have somebody else take care of the rest of the stuff.
That's
so
right.
There was we used to attend the Saratoga Farmers Market for 8 years in upstate New York. I think there's 4 main florists up there. There was, and every of those 4 florists had their own look. One of those florists should have never left the farm, and they should have sent somebody else because they were just very introverted. Yeah, they should have been weeding. Yep. But, you know, I think it's really good both of you said, because, you know, I love flowers. I absolutely love flowers, but I hate dealing with flowers. I want to be able to walk through my field, see the beautiful flowers. I want to see the kids running through the field with their parents, cutting the flowers and getting the enjoyment from that, and people walking away with armloads of blooms. But I don't want to cut them. I don't want to do that. So we're focusing this year on expanding our U-pick substantially. And we are in talks with a local retired head designer or bouquet maker at a local flower shop. And she may come in and actually work with us. And she basically may tell us what to grow, and it will be partial U-pick, partial for her. She'll take the best for her and make some bouquets for us once a week. And that to me would be perfect.
That's a great example.
But everyone's going to be different. So I just want to make sure that, we realize that there's not one. And that's the cool thing about having 27 different, actually it's 30 different presentations. I get the word from my team yesterday that we actually did get those. We have 30 presentations in the summit now. But that's the cool thing about having these 30 different perspectives on what this is, because it is such a massively broad world, which is so awesome. So, all right, one more question here, and then we will do the giveaway. Let's see. Brandy says, the summit has opened my eyes to so many different channels for flowers. Thank you for putting this together. And back to our questions right here. Okay, Shannon says, I see pictures of flower farms that look like no beginning and no end. I also see perfectly placed flower beds. Is there a method to the madness? I would just like to come out and say, I'm giving you permission to fail, because there will be the first years. This year we planted way too many giant marigolds, and we ended up just ripping them out. We planted way too few stalk. My dahlias looked horrible. I still don't know what I did wrong with them, but I look at those pictures from Sunny Meadows and Tanya, and I hang my head in shame because mine looked so poor. But I give you permission to fail. So there, Dave, you got anything, Barbara?
No, but that's true. I always like to say, if in any one year everything worked perfect, you could retire that year. Because if every crop was perfect, everything grew, was picked and sold, your income would go up by 50%. But we're in a real world. We got insects, Mother Nature, weather, employees, everything that goes wrong. You always have something that's not perfect. Just get used to it. My biggest thing is, if you have something that's not good, don't try and sell it. It goes in the compost pile. As soon as you sell something bad, you probably lost a customer forever.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I know you were just giving an example of marigolds, but when you grow marigolds, if you grow the Signet variety, those are also edible. So don't throw them out. Pick all those flowers.
The Signet, the little ones.
Yeah, the Signets are the little ones, truly. So again, that's really good for a children's garden, a child's U-pick. And for my growing, it's not a very, very large production. It's not in rows. It's very, I let when goldenrod comes up and yarrow comes up, and a lot of those things come up, natural monarda, so many of those things, I let them grow because they're all valuable. And so I've got a lot of patches. It's almost like a Monet painting of how it looks. But that's the way I like it, and that's the way it works for me. But that's not, but I'm not going to run a tractor. I'm not going to have the large production like some other people have. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is space for everyone in this industry with all different types, sizes, scales. There's the space for the 20 acre, and there's a space for the 1/8 of an acre, and there's a space for the person in their kitchen sink that just want to have a few flowers for themselves and to cheer up the people in the neighborhood that need that. So
yeah, we're just on 6 acres here, and So yeah, not quite as big as some of you.
All right. Well, I think that was great. So we have this winner for the day's giveaway. Again, it's brought to you by Farmer's Friend. And it is, let's see here. I'm just trying to find the website. It is Abigail Helberg Moffett, and from Bloom, Farmer Florist Bloom in Black Mountain, North Carolina. So congrats, Abigail. And I'm just thinking Jonathan's going to be relieved. He doesn't have to ship that far.
Yeah, I know her. So congratulations, Abigail. Yes.
Awesome. Yes. So yeah,
I didn't draw the name though.
Yes, our team did the whole, pick that. And so congrats to Abigail. Now, we do have a tomorrow giveaway, and we have a very special giveaway on Sunday. So make sure that you guys pay attention. Come with be here for all 3 days of the summit. Because again, today we try to, people say, well, there wasn't that many presentations today. That's intentional. We know a lot of people still working on Fridays. So we try to make Friday a little bit lighter. And then we really go hard Saturday and Sunday. So tomorrow, I think there was 11 presentations. I think there was like 11 or 12 on Sunday. We also have a live session tomorrow from 7 to 9. And then we have a live session at 9 a.m. on Sunday, and then a recap and closing ceremonies at 7 p.m. So we've got a lot going on, folks. There's my team is exhausted. They've been at this now for, well, we've been doing this for 12 months, but the last 5 have been busy, and the last 3 weeks have been crazy. So a huge shout out to them. And I don't know if you guys know Heidi, who did one of the presentations today. She also is the master behind the whole summit thing. So she's the one making sure all the presentations get in, following up with our speakers. Speakers are hard to corral, folks. I will be very honest with you. That speakers
Guilty.
Well, we know Dave's very busy, so we'll give him a pass. But one speaker actually recorded with me Monday morning, and we knocked it out, got it to the editor, and it's already in the summit for you all. So, but yeah, again, a huge shout out to all of them over there and our behind the scenes. They all need a month off now as soon as we finish this up on Sunday. But Dave, Barbara, thank you so much. Any final words before we go?
Oh, if people do this cut flower farming, you can either do it as a business where it's going to be your source of income, and you got to really work at it. You got to treat it like a job.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to do it as a hobby, that's fine, but you still have to do it and make sure everything it works. You can't just plant it and walk away from it. But there's room in the industry for the small grower that's on a 1/4 acre and the guy that's 100 acres in California. There's room for all of us.
Yeah,
that is so well said. And just as I know everybody's so busy, but as much as you can, enjoy those flowers. There really is so much benefit beyond just the physical that we receive from being with the flowers. And if you can, just enjoy their beauty.
Absolutely.
Yeah, enjoy the flowers. And I have a friend in Canada always says, where are you going today that you can take flowers? So if you're going to visit someone, whether it's somebody in the hospital or just somebody at work, going to lunch, going to visit a friend, take flowers. Whether it's out of your own garden or from the local grocery store, just take them flowers.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
It's funny you said that, because my wife and I, when we got married, we're very practical people. So I up front when I started dating, I was like, I'm not going to buy you flowers. You better realize that from the start. I will grow you flowers. I will grow you beautiful flowers, all types of flowers. I will bring you flowers all the time if we're growing them. But between that, you're just not going to get them. And she was 100% fine with that. And I think we've stuck with that. I don't think I've ever spent money on buying here's the thing. I haven't ever bought grocery store flowers that weren't actually local or something. So I have bought, other local flowers for her, right. But the grocery store, carnations, rose, not happening.
You're allowed to do that. That's okay.
But I will wrap up by saying, folks, again, thank you so much for coming. And to follow up on what Dave said, treat it like a business. If you want to make it a business, you have to know your business. I mean, that's why I think it was last year we did the Start Your Farm Intensive. which basically is 30 days. It's 30 lessons that go from dream to getting funding from the bank for your business idea. And again, you don't have to get funding. That's just where we wanted to wrap you up. That in those 30 days, you had the confidence to go get that. Because if you don't know your numbers and you don't know what you're doing from the start, you're just going to take years just kind of figuring things out. And some of you, that's the journey for you. You just want to take very little baby steps every single year. And again, if you have young kids, if you have a lot going on, that is probably your path. Don't feel like you need to go from 0 to 60 in 1 or 2 years, because that's not sane. It's crazy. And I was talking to Jessica Hall on live with her Tuesday, is we keep seeing farmers burn out, lose their families, lose their marriages, lose their farms because they try to do too much too fast. So it's okay to go slow, but also make sure you do know your numbers and treat it like a business. If you want it to be a business, if you want it to be a hobby, again, that's 100% fine, and have fun along the way. So, Dave, anything else?
Nope, that's it, I think, for me tonight.
All right. All right. Well, I dropped, if you guys are interested, the all access pass, if you want to own all the presentations, still available. I dropped that into the chat for you guys if you want to go check that out. Because again, tomorrow, ton more awesome presentations, and Sunday as well. Some great presentations coming from, again, a wonderful panel of speakers that are sharing all about the wonderful world of flowers. So Dave, Barbara, all of you joining us. We had a ton of fun tonight. At least I did. I had a ton of fun chatting with you all. I know there's so many questions we didn't get to. Unfortunately, that's just again, Dave said this could go on for 3 hours, but we will try not to do that. So thank you all very much and have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.